Good rising, brethren. This is Big Judah, coming to you guys from California. Before I begin, give all praises to the Most High, Yahweh. Acknowledgement to the earthly mother, who is wisdom, who is the Holy Spirit. Acknowledgement to Yahweh Shai. I pray that the Most High blesses this lesson this evening, gives more knowledge and understanding of the events of the past, in order to understand the events that are currently happening on the earth, so we may get a much better understanding of what is soon to come on the earth. Right before I started this video, I got a notification that the Iranians had launched missiles at an American base in Iraq. And we understand what is going on. We understand because scriptures have said that once the two sticks, the Book of More, was released back to the people, that was a sign that the Most High is bringing the end to bear. We've now been working with this book, and the Most High has been opening up knowledge and understanding for the last 9 to 10 months, and we've been starting to come together and pray together on a consistent basis every day, 6 p.m. West Coast time. And as we've done that, we've seen events ramp up. Last night, I asked the Most High, I've asked him many times, why is it so important to make us think that our lands are over there? Why is it so important to keep that secret? Why is it such an important thing for the Gentiles, as well as many Hebrews who are aligned with the Gentiles, to keep pushing that lie? The Most High gave me that answer last night, and I'm going to bring it to you today. And I feel that this is no coincidence that last night the Most High opened up that understanding to me. And then today, this huge event just occurred. Nothing is by coincidence. Understanding is being increased, and the ones who don't, or is not called to this, will find any reason to stay stuck. But we will continue following the Most High. And after this video this evening, you're going to see why it's been so important for the other nations to push the narrative that the Holy Land is over there in the so-called Middle East, and why it could never be here. It could never be here in the Americas. Let's get this. We're going to read a little bit right here about when Moses and the Israelites finally get to the edge of the promised land, and Moses sends in 12 spies to survey the land, to look at who's there, and to look at will they be able to take the land. So let's look at Numbers 13. We'll start at 17. And Moshe sent them to spy out the land of Canaan, and said unto them, get you up this way southward, and go up into the mountain, and see the land, what it is, and the people that dwell therein, whether they be strong or weak, few or many, and what the land is that they dwell in, whether it be good or bad, and what cities they be that they dwell in, whether in tents or in strongholds. This is very important. Make sure they check to see if they live in tents or if these people are in strongholds. Okay? Make sure we're going to come back to that. And what the land is, whether it be fat or lean, whether there be wood therein or not, and be ye of good courage, and bring of the fruit of the land. Now the time was the time of the first striped grapes. So they went up and searched the land, from the wilderness of Zin unto Rechav, as men come to Chamath, And they ascended by the Negev, and came unto Chevron, where Achiman, Sheshai, and Telmai, the children of Anak, were. Okay. Now Chevron was built 7 years before Soan and Mizraim. And they came unto the brook of Eshcol, and cut down from thence a branch, one cluster of grapes. And they bore it between two upon a staff. And they brought of the pomegranates and of the figs. The place was called Nachal Eshcol, because of the cluster of grapes which the children of Yasharal cut down from thence. And they returned from searching of the land after 40 days. And they went and came to El Moshe and El Aran, and to all the assembly of the children of Yasharal, unto the wilderness of Paran, to Kadesh, and brought back word unto them, and unto all the assembly, and showed them the fruit of the land. And they told him and said, We came unto the land whither you sent us, and surely it flows with milk and honey, and this is the fruit of it. Nevertheless, the people be strong that dwell in the land, and the cities are walled and very great. And moreover, we saw the children of Anak there. That's very important, okay? That these people had walled cities, okay? They weren't living in tents. These people were living in fortified, walled cities. They were very great, okay? And they saw the children of Anak there. And those would be giants. The Amalekim dwell in the land of Negev, and the Chittim, and the Uviakim, and the Amorium dwell in the mountains, and the Canaans dwell by the sea, and by the coast of Yarden. And Caleb stilled the people before Moshe, and said, Let us go up at once, and possess it, for we are well able to overcome it. Okay, hold on real fast. I'm going to read it from my other, because it's going to be kind of messed up right there, a little blocked. So let me get that real quick. Numbers 13. So there it is. Some of them are ready to go. I'm going to start from Numbers 13 and 30. And Caleb stilled the people before Moses and said, Let us go up at once and possess it, for we are well able to overcome it. But the men that went up with him said, We be not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we. And they brought up an evil report of the land which they had searched unto the children of Israel, saying, The land through which we have gone to search it is a land that eateth up the inhabitants thereof. And all the people that we saw in it are men of great stature. And there we saw the giants, the sons of Anak, which come of the giants, and we were in our own sight as grasshoppers. And so we were in their sight. So now they were going into a land that had walled cities, great walled cities, just like in the first example would have been Jericho, right? You're dealing with a land full of giants as well. You're dealing with a land that is full of milk and honey, has a lot of food, a lot of chances to grow a lot of huge amounts of fruit and vegetables and things like that. So you're going to a very fertile land. So we need to find these kinds of things, because that's what we're going to be looking for in order to find the promised land, the land of milk and honey. Because this has been a land that has been definitely, other nations have wanted it. They have yearned for our inheritance, yearned for our land. And when Noah was breaking everything up and divvying up the land, Canaan went and stole our portion. And eventually the Most High was going to return it to its rightful owners. So, but the Most High is looking for faith. And the vast majority of the Israelites did not have faith. So therefore they were stuck going out again and wandering for 40 more years. But they were fearful because of what they saw in the land. Yes, the land was very bountiful, land of milk and honey. Other people had taken it and possessed it, but the Most High was wanting to give it back to his people, but they had very little faith. Now you're going to get it from the own Gentiles' mouths why they don't want to believe that the land over here is actually the land of promise, but they prefer to believe that the land over there in the so-called Middle East is the land of promise. And you're going to see why they want to believe that. Let's go there real fast. This was a video that I was led to that I'm going to want to share with you guys. Okay, so let's check this out. This is coming from, where is this from? ABC News, okay? From actually a while ago, okay? About almost 8 years ago, okay? Check this out.
One generation to the next, where Moses and his generation have been wandering. It's the story of wandering for 40 years. Joshua's more action-packed. It's where they come on in and they take over.
As told in the book of Joshua, the conquest of Canaan has all the trappings of a summer blockbuster.
Sounds like a movie. It's an action-packed scene.
With the Ark of the Covenant leading the way, Joshua crossed the River Jordan with his army.
I'm sure this is an elite fighting force.
The conquest of Jericho is one in which God is clearly in the role of a divine warrior.
The Bible tells us.
And the Bible talks about how the Most High is a man of war. The rest of the world does not want to believe this. They want to believe he's the soft, all-loving, person that they have held up for these last few hundred years. And that he wouldn't, ordain people's deaths, men, women, and children. They choose to believe otherwise. But let's continue.
That Joshua conquered Jericho by walking around the city 7 times.
The whole time carrying the mystical Ark of the Covenant, which the Bible describes as having special powers.
God at that moment causes the walls to crumble and to fall down. And then it's at that moment that you just get this image of them just rushing in on the city and flooding in and taking it over for better or for worse, however you view that kind of image, whether that's one of excitement and action or that's one of, hey, this is war, and war can be ugly.
In this war, the Bible makes clear that no prisoner should be taken alive. Every man, woman, and child should be slaughtered. And according to the Bible, this bloody battle was just the first stop on Joshua's campaign.
Now, according to the book of Joshua.
Okay. So, according to Joshua, if you believe what the Bible says, then you must look at the book of Joshua. You got to look at the orders that were given by the Most High to go in and to destroy and to kill everyone, men, women, and children. And what you just said was this was just the first of many cities that were going to have the same fate. So, if the Bible is true, and you're going through and you're just destroying all the people that have taken over your possessions, your land, and the Most High has given them back to you and telling you how to dispose of them, don't you think that there should be some proof, some definitely archaeological proof? Sure, to go in and dig up some places where there's going to be mass graves of men, women, and children who are destroyed. You're going to find some cities that were walled cities, that were fortified cities. You're going to find bones of giants to show you where these kinds of things are taking place, because they're destroying, Canaanites, other different people, the sons of Anak. You should have some record or some proof of that happening. Okay, so let's listen. Now, see what these Gentiles would rather believe is something totally different, and watch.
The Israelite troops invaded en masse from Transjordan, and in a period probably of a few months, conquered the whole land of Canaan, expelled or slaughtered the Canaanites, divided up the whole land among the 12 tribes. Then Joshua gives a sermon at the end, and it's all over.
Jericho is a highlight now on most Holy Land tours The pilgrims are drawn here by the violent version of how the Israelites came into the Promised Land. But it's unlikely that this is actually how it happened.
Already, here we go. Here we go. Oh, well, the Bible says it, but we really don't think that's how it happened. You see, this is how it is when Gentiles take your records. They say, oh, this is for sure the work, the word of God. There's nothing wrong with it. It's pure. But as soon as they find certain things that they don't like, well, I don't think that really happened like this. Let me give you my opinion. Let me give you my breakdown. Now you can start to see why it is that they push the Middle East is where this happened and not over here.
People forget that there are two versions of the so-called conquest of Canaan in the Hebrew Bible.
The book of Joshua suggests a blitzkrieg. It's a form of mass colonialism, massive slaughter. It's horrible.
That's exactly what the other nations did to us. A blitzkrieg, slaughter, and it's horrible. Now, see, the other nations have done that to us, but they want to hide the fact that they've done all this to us. So what are they going to do right here? Check this out.
And then we have the story of Judges, a gradual infiltration into the sparsely populated hill country. Do we want the blitzkrieg model, or do we want the gradual settlement model?
There you go. Which model do the Gentiles want? Do they want the model? They think that they can choose which model they want to accept. They want to be able to choose the kind of God that they want. They don't want the blitzkrieg, destroy everyone, kill everybody, men, women, and children, and do as I say, or I'm going to destroy you power. They don't want that kind of a God. They want to just, hey, just come in, hang out with us, and just kind of assimilate. That's the kind of God that they want. And when you listen to her, it's like they get to choose, which we know that's not true. But that's exactly what has happened.
The question is, what do we believe? What do we actually think happened?
The archaeology does lend some support to the less dramatic and gentler account.
That's huge. The archaeology over there lets them believe that the second, way that they want to believe is correct. Lets them believe, like the Judges account, that it was just a nice, easy, situation where they just got to come in and just kind of ease their way into the land of Canaan. Over there in the so-called Middle East, the archaeology supports that narrative. You see that? So therefore, if they want to push that narrative, they need to go over there to the so-called Middle East to push that narrative. That's huge. And that's a huge reason why they keep on pushing. It's over there. It's over there. It's over there. Let's listen to that part one more time, because I think this is huge and this is really important to understand.
Conquest of Canaan in the Hebrew Bible.
The book of Joshua suggests a blitzkrieg. It's a form of mass colonialism, massive slaughter. It's horrible. And then we have the story of Judges, a gradual infiltration into the sparsely populated hill country. Do we want the blitzkrieg model, or do we want the gradual settlement model?
The question is, what do we believe? What do we actually think happened?
The archaeology does lend some support to the less dramatic and gentler account.
Of all the years when Jericho is inhabited, the one period where we want it to be inhabited so Joshua can attack it, there's nobody living there.
There you go. So the one time when Joshua was supposed to actually be going into Jericho and destroying this stronghold, there was nobody there. Showing you right now then that this whole scenario, this whole part of the book of Joshua did not happen over there. So instead of them actually going out and trying to find out where this really happened, they don't do that. They just said, well, this means that the book of Joshua didn't happen. It didn't happen like that. That it's all made up. You see this? And they're admitting it to. They're admitting to it right here. They're letting you know that the whole area, the whole story of Jericho and the walls coming down, and everything else, didn't happen there. So instead of them trying to figure out the truth, they just run with that and just said, oh, okay, well, the Bible's not right. That's just a made up story. Watch.
It's empty. There's no wall for Joshua to knock down.
To put it,
I want you to hear that one time.
There's nobody living there. It's of all the years when Jericho is inhabited, the one period where we want it to be inhabited so Joshua can attack it, there's nobody living there. It's empty. There's no wall for Joshua to knock down.
to put it bluntly, the book of Joshua is almost all fictitious.
Yes, there's some battles. Yes, there's some.
That's exactly what these people do. Instead of going and figuring out where this happened, where's the proof? Where are the bones of the giants? Where are the bones of the people that are getting destroyed? Where are these, fortifications? They're not there. So instead of actually going and looking for the truth, they just make up an entire lie and say that, oh, this just never even happened.
Some killing, but overall, they're coming in and they're living side by side with some of the Canaanites.
This sounds radical, but when I talk to
Now listen to this part. This is why Gentiles don't want to believe the truth. Listen.
most people, they're relieved. The genocide that is God's will, Yahweh's will, never happened.
For some, the story told in the book of Joshua presents a troubling picture of a violent God. But others...
Now, that's the problem. The story of Joshua presents a picture of a violent God, and the Gentiles don't want to believe that. They don't want to believe that they are actually going to have to pay for what was done to the Most High's chosen people. So that's why they push the whole narrative of everything happened over there, because there's no proof of the events that were happening in the Bible going on over there. So they're allowed to just say that these things never happened, and that kind of a God doesn't exist. That the only God that exists is one that loves everybody and that forgives everyone. Because if they actually found the proof that there is a God or a power that does believe in, making people pay for the sins and making people pay for the things that happened to the Hebrews, to his chosen people, then that would just scare the living daylights out of these Gentiles. Well, you're going to find out today that there is a lot of proof that these events did occur, and no, they did not occur over there. But there's a lot of proof that these events are all fulfilled over here, or a lot of it was fulfilled over here. Remember now, let's go. When they were going into the land, they were talking about the giants. So they were going to have to kill giants. They were also going to have to kill a lot of people. They were going to have to destroy many cities. They were going to have to kill men, women, and children. So all those, you should be able to find all those things in the archaeological sites to verify where these things were happening. Here we go. You got the map. Now there's more giants because a lot of this information was hidden. But there's giants all over the place here. We've seen this already before. Okay? We knew that when the Most High told them to go ahead and go in there, that they were going to, and in the book of Joshua, and he was telling them to go ahead and go in there, and the Most High was with the chosen people, and he was going to be there with them. Okay, and the guy was talking about in the video about how they were going to be able to go in there and take over the land because the Most High was with them. And let me see here if I want to get in there. I'm taking a look here real fast. So the Most High already told them that he was going to be with them. So the chosen people went in there. Like I said, went over to Jericho, walked around it 7 times, yelled and screamed. The Most High brought down the walls, and they destroyed the inhabitants, destroyed men, women, and children. And they went to another place, Ai, and they were just doing it they were going the same thing. If the Most High told them to do it, they went and took care of it. Whatever the Most High did, we're all familiar with the story. Okay? There's other accounts of these things happening as well. All right? There's the accounts right here. Let's see here. Because these things were happening where things would happen to our people, and then they would go out and take revenge. This is from the book of Joshua. Oh, no, Jasher right here. Let me see which one I want to see here. Let's read it from the top. There was Dinah had been raped by a Canaanite. And you should definitely read this on your own if you have not read Jasher 34. Because just two of the brothers, I want to say it was a Simeon and Levi, went and destroyed an entire city. And they went, and then the brothers got together and they just started going from city to city. And these cities were huge fortifications. And these brothers were just taking them down like nothing because the Most High was with the chosen people. And and then you understand why they want to hide all this information. And let's read a little bit. It says, and she hastened and sent one of her maidens that her father had sent to take care of her in the house of Shechem to Jacob, her father, and to her brother, saying, thus did Chiddekem and his brothers advise concerning you. And thus did Shamor and Shechem and the people of the city answer them. And when Jacob heard these words, he was filled with wrath. He was indignant at them, and his anger was kindled against them. And Shimon and Levi swore and said, as Yahweh lives, the Elohim of the whole earth, by this time tomorrow there shall not be a remnant left in the whole city. So they were kind of going back on their word. I would suggest you just go back and read. I'm not going to go through all of this, but these people were supposed to get circumcised, and many of them said that they were not going to. So they went back on their word. So they already done, what's going to happen. They're going to kill everybody in the city. So, and there was a great consternation in the midst of the city, and the cry of the people of the city ascended to heaven, and all the women and children cried aloud. And Shimon and Levi slew all the city. They left not a male remaining in the whole city. And they slew Chamor and Shechem, his son, at the edge of the sword. And they brought away Dinah from the house of Shechem, and they went from there. And the sons of Yaakov went and returned, and came upon the slain, and spoiled all their property, which was in the city and the field. And while they were taking the spoil, 300 men stood up and threw dust at them, and struck them with stones. When Shimon turned to them, he slew them all with the edge of the sword. And Shimon turned before Levi, and came into the city. And they took away their sheep, and their oxen, and their cattle, and also the remainder of the women, and the little ones. And they led all these away, and they opened a gate, and went out, and came unto their father, Yaakov, with vigor. And when Yaakov saw all that they had done to the city, and saw the spoil that they had took from them, Yaakov was angry at them. And Yaakov said unto them, what is this that you have done to me? Behold, I obtained rest amongst the Canaanites, inhabitants of the land, and none of them meddled with me. And now you have done to make me obnoxious to the inhabitants of the land, amongst the Canaanites and the Perizzium, and I am but a small number, and they will assemble against me and slay me when they hear of. And we'll stop it right there. The whole point was these two brothers destroyed an entire city on their own. Simeon right there killed 300 men all by himself. So when you start looking at these movies like 300, you start looking at how they were just, these Greeks were fighting with these, millions of Persians, only 300 men. They're getting these stories from our people. Now you're looking at whole cities being destroyed. You're hearing about how they were told to kill men, women, and children. You're taking these huge fortifications. Now when you start to get some more of the historical things that they were finding over here, you'll start to make the connection. And you'll start to find out why it is that they wanted to make sure that you thought that everything was happening over there in the so-called Middle East was happening right here. Because they want to, not only do they want to give you a different type of a God, a weak one, an all-loving one, one that forgives everyone. So they had to actually push that also into another land as well. Because this land does not support that theory. This is what we must have looked like, the Hebrews to the other nations. When you got one person destroying 300 all by himself, then you're going to have 12 of them or 100 of them standing alone against 600,000. 700,000. And those 100 or 12, 12 to 100 people, it would be like the 12 tribes and some of the people that live with them would go out there to battle. And nothing would happen to the children of the Most High, but they would just be destroying all the other nations. That would be absolutely terrifying to the rest of the nations. And now you're going to understand why it is they went out of their way to try to hide, the proof of these events occurring. So if they could say things like, oh, that whole story of Joshua, yeah, that never happened. That whole blitzkrieg and them coming in and destroying everything, yeah, that never happened. That was all made up. That's what they do. That's what they've been able to do. But when the Book of Mormon came out, as the Most High said, we'll talk about that in a little bit, that was the pivotal time that the Most High said, your lies are done. You're not going to lie to my people anymore. Because with the Book of Mormon has opened up all this other studying and brought back all this other information to us so that we may now understand our power, our lands, where we came from. The events did happen that were in the Bible, and now we know where they were happening. So the Most High empowered his people, just like he said he will do again in the future. And the rest of the nations don't want to hear that. See, what they want to do is Revelation 11. They want to live it up and leave us dead in the street. They can only do that if they create a God that loves everyone and forgives all their actions, and that they're never going to have to pay for that. That does not fit these lands over here. But it does fit the lands over there, because these events did not happen over there. Just like the guy said in a video, during the time of Jericho, no one was living in those lands. There were no walls. So either you have two choices. Either you believe that that never happened and that the Bible was wrong, or your other choice is that this did happen, but it just did not happen over there. It happened somewhere else. The Gentiles don't want to search for that. They want to hide that fact. So they're content believing a lie. And the whole world is confederate with them. We also got, there was a Jasher 73. And this was because I'm not sure exactly where it was, but I do remember because Moses was living with the Cushites for a while, and he was actually a general with them, and that they were having great wars, and they were destroying other strongholds as well. So like I said, so you're looking for a place that has all these different strongholds. You're going to look for a place that has all these different dead inhabitants, dead men, women, and children. And their skeletons and bones are still going to be here. And the bones of these giants are still going to be here as well. Let's read a little bit here. Let's see. Actually, I'm not going to read all this. I'll leave it here. You can pause it and read it on your own. But this whole thing is about a story about, Moshe working. Well, I'm going to read some of it. Let's see here. This started at 33. For Moshe remembered how Abraham had made his servant Eleazar swear, saying unto him, you shall not take a woman from the daughters of the Canaanites for my son Isaac. Okay, so he couldn't take a wife, okay, from the Canaanites. And that's what was going on right here, because he became the king. Okay, let's see here. Also, what Isaac did with Jacob had fled from his brother when he commanded him, saying, you shall not take a woman from the daughters of the Canaanites. Okay, nor make an alliance with any of the children of Ham. All right, so let's go ahead and skip on down to 37. And Moshe feared Yahweh, okay, all his life, and Moshe walked before Yahweh in truth with all his heart and soul. He turned not from the right way all the days of his life. He declined not from the way either to the right or to the left, in which Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob had walked. And Moshe strengthened himself in the kingdom of the children of Cush, and he guided the children of Cush with his usual wisdom, and Moshe prospered in his kingdom. And at the time of Aram, and the children of the east heard that Kikinianus, king of Cush, had died, so Aram and the children of the east rebelled against Cush in those days. And Moshe gathered all the children of Cush, a people very mighty, about 30,000 men. And he went forth to fight with Aram and the children of the east. And they went at first to the children of the east. And when the children of the east heard their report, they went to meet them and engaged in battle with them. And the war was severe against the children of the east. So Yahweh gave all the children of the east into the hand of Moshe. And about 300 men fell down slain. And all the children of the east turned back and retreated. So Moshe and the children of Cush followed them and subdued them and put a tax upon them, as was their custom. The whole point of this, I'm not saying this all necessarily happened here, but the fact is that the Most High blessed his people. And when they were going into battle, they were destroying, the enemies. And they were destroying many fortified cities, and there was moats, and there was all these different things that were going on that they were destroying back then. But the whole point is that back then, they had these huge cities with fortifications, and that the Most High was just handing over the Gentiles to his people. He was delivering them into the hands of his people. And this was going on for a very long time. So this was happening when he was gone for the 40 years after he left Egypt. And then when he came back and got his people, he was going in and he was destroying giants. He was and destroying the people that were living in the land of Canaan. Well, not him, but actually Joshua was doing that. But the Most High was delivering the other nations into the hands of the Israelites. Okay? The kings here, right? Again, empowering his people to be the lions. Here's your little picture here of what Jericho would have looked like. These huge fortifications, these huge walls, all these people living inside of these huge cities. It says Jericho was the first city Israel conquered in Canaan, the promised land. After the Israelites marched around the city for 7 days, its walls fell as the priests blew ram's horns, and the Israelites shouted at Joshua's command. Okay? So like I said, when you're looking at cities of this size, you should have some proof that there were cities around. You should have some proof that there were many people being killed. You should have, you should be able to find some skeletons, something. This happened somewhere, instead of saying, "Oh, that didn't happen." But see, the Gentiles don't want to believe that the Most High is a terrible power. They don't want to believe that they're going to have to pay for their sins. They want to believe that they can do whatever that they want to do to everyone else, especially Most High's chosen people, and then they can just say white Jesus and get a pass. And trying to believe the land is over there, you can do that. Here you go with your inner walls, you got your outer walls, and in some of the other accounts of the Israelites going in and taking over these, after Dinah was raped and he went and the brothers went and got her, saved her, they just started going to different cities and just destroying the Canaanites. Instead of waiting for them to get together and come after them, they started going after them. And it was just 12 of them. And they were just going from city to city. And I remember one account, there was an outer wall and an inner wall. And Judah and one of the other brothers had to jumped up and over the wall and were just destroying everyone. And there was inner walls they had to jump over as well. If someone remembers the story, go ahead and throw that in the description box too. Okay, another one right there. So I'm sure they're probably trying to say that this was what it was like over there in the Middle East, in so-called Middle East. Okay. Now, we're going to get into a book that's going to show you a lot of evidence that many of these strongholds and these bones and these weapons of war were already found over here. And we already know that that's true. And that the Smithsonian hid much of this information. Now we understand why they were trying to hide it. They were hiding it because they don't want people to realize that they're living in the land where much of this stuff took place. That there's way more proof of this happening over here than of it happening over there in the so-called Middle East. And so that people can live a comfortable life by putting us at the bottom and keeping their feet on our neck the whole time, they had to hide all this information. They had to hide the fact that, yes, there is proof that Joshua, the book of Joshua, is true. And there is proof that it happened right here in the land where you're oppressing the Most High's chosen people right now. Because this book is going to be very difficult to come by. I only found one. Okay, so this is the only one that I could find on the internet right now, but we're going to be getting some information right now. Let's see here. Book of Mormon geography. Well, let me read one thing first before we get into this one. I didn't make a copy of it, so I said I was just going to read it to you. Let me get it real quick. And here it is. And does it want to load? Because many of the people before, here we go, was talking about the people who were as inhabiting to this land. This is on page, I want to say 15 of this book. It says, Josiah Priest was convinced that not only Asiatic people very soon after the flood, but also all along the ages, the different races of men colonized different parts of this country. America was peopled before the flood. It was the country of Noah and the place where the ark was erected. So that's what this guy is saying right here in the book, that they already knew that this was the land, that was already populated before the flood, and that this was the land where Noah was, and that he built the ark here. We already know that there's plenty of evidence of that happening in around the area of Florida, because that's where gopher wood is native to. They want to make it sound like no one was ever here, and that no one of any significance was here before 1492, and you don't need to know anything about it. But in order to create that narrative where they could live their lives and not be thinking about how the Most High really is, they had to do that. We're just going to read a couple of things from some of these pages, okay? I'm not going to read all of it. You guys can pause it and read some of it on your own. Let's see here. Let's look at the top here. Turner allows his imaginations to follow the builders, okay, of these fortifications. Excuse me. So they're finding huge fortifications all over the place, okay? It says through Ohio into the great valley of the Mississippi, thence to the Gulf of Mexico, through Texas into New Mexico and South America. The historian Squire has written extensively on this subject, practically agreeing with Turner in his major conclusions. In 1851, he published a book on the subject after years of research. He estimated that about 259 drumlin hills in western New York had been strongly fortified by an ancient people. In nearly all cases, these forts are placed in close proximity to some unfailing supply of water, near copious springs or running streams. Gateways opening toward these are always to be observed, and in some cases guarded passageways are also visible. Characteristic feature of the fortified towns is the cache or well in which their food supply was stored. These holes are about 8 feet deep and comparable of holding a large quantity of food. They were very numerous and were always located in the driest portion of the enclosure. Let's see here. He then describes many of these fortified sites, all of which had a high embankment of the earth with an exterior ditch. His opinion of the fate that overtook these early inhabitants is that the ancient village was destroyed by enemies, that these are the bones of its occupants who fell in defense of their kindred. And of course, this is a block. So hold on. Let me look and see. I have the book, so I can read that part. Is that page 72? So you got, okay, page 72. Who fell in defense of their kindred and were burned in the fires which consumed their lodges. He saw bushels of stones, axes, flints, arrowheads, and other remnants of savage art. Now remember, they're not going to be telling you, they're going to be making up, well, we don't know who was here. We don't know anything. So if you guys don't know anything, why am I listening to you? Why does your opinion matter? If you're not going to tell us who was here, who these people are, then why are we even listening to you? Let's go to the next page, 73. It says, bones of fallen warriors. He emphasizes the fact that in every fortified village, The skeletons of the defenders are buried promiscuously, adults of both sexes, children, and infants. Many skulls were fractured as if by a blow. So now we're finding all these different areas where there's people that are buried, and they were buried how? We got men, women, and children. Just as Most High told, our people when they went in, to kill men, women, children. So now we're finding huge cities, huge fortifications. We're finding bones of men, women, and children, and we're finding many bones of giants. A lot of the stuff that you're not finding over in the so-called Middle East, you're finding right here. Concerning every village he helped explore, he writes this comment: human bones are promiscuously heaped together. This county, he concludes, possessed a very heavy original population, probably greater than or equal to the extent of territory north of the Floridas. Okay, let me see here. We're going to continue with some more, but you guys can read some more of that stuff here. Okay, let's go ahead and skip on up. Page 74. Let me read the bottom of 73 and then continue with here. So here it says, every scientist who has studied the fortifications of Homeland has said much about the burial of the dead, which indicated that they were killed in battle. From another source, we find this typical comment: children of different ages and the full grown seem to have been piled together promiscuously. One of the skulls was found pierced by an arrow, which was still sticking in it, driven about halfway through before its force was spent. The arrow point was about 6 inches long. The subjects of this mound were doubtless killed in battle and hastily buried. Some of the mounds are full of bones that are perforated, as though the living subjects were slain in battle, and that the skeletons were heaped together in promiscuous confusion, and if buried after a conflict. So you got all these different places showing up, these mounds, and you got all these people that are being buried in it, men, women, and children who are being killed and destroyed. So almost every historian or scientist emphasizes that the bones were of both sexes and of all ages. Many of the skulls bore marks of violence, leading to the belief that they were broken before burial. So these people don't want to believe that there's a God that actually, told his people to do these kinds of things. So therefore, they just hide all this information. They just ignore all this information because it's probably too scary for them to think about. That there was actually going to be, there's going to be a payment required for what was done to the Most High's chosen people. Even though it's written all over the Bible, all over the scriptures, people don't want to believe it. And now the Most High is now bringing this information to light. And it all started when the Most High brought us back the Book of More. Because that's now led us to looking at all these other different things. Let's continue. The renowned scientist Josiah Priest wrote extensively on this subject. After a careful research, he estimated the number of fortified hills in western New York at 250. He and Dr. Cutler and the historian Atwater spent months studying tree rings and the time required for a forest to grow above the ruins of a vanquished race. It was their opinion that this country was deserted about 500 years after the commencement of the Christian era. And like I said, the whole thing with the years and everything else, we already know that some of the times have already been messed with. Like, we don't really know if we're thousands of years past Christ. I mean, I've heard other videos, I think King Drop talked about how the years are off and things like that. But that's another topic for another time. Okay? Let me see here if I want to read some more. They knew that it wasn't the natives that actually built the stuff, because the stuff that built a lot of these things. Okay, they were all totally aware of that. Okay, let's see. They're talking about even about Babylonian stuff actually going on over here. Where is that at? That's on this page right here. Yes. It says, Priest describes many of the forts that were to be discerned years ago, their ancient forms faintly visible to the trained eye of the scientist. He gives the usual information, and his conclusions agree with those expressed in these pages. He mentions 8 tall mounds within the enclosure of one large fort, each located near the gateway. These, he assumes, were to be crowned with warriors, or with spectators to watch the warriors as they left the fort or returned after a skirmish. These vast and numerous forts in western New York cause the imagination to be irresistibly directed to a contemplation of ancient Babylon, the first city of magnitude to be erected immediately after the flood. So they're already talking about how these things are already matching cities from ancient times, from biblical times. Okay? And some of the, just the size of some of these cities. I'm going to read the bottom of page 75 and get here to 76. Another historian, calling himself an Americanist, wrote a book which he called The Ruins Revisited. On page 206 of this volume, we read of a large fort in western New York, capable of enclosing 60,000 soldiers and their families. He sees among the ruins of these fortified hills lookouts that served as signal towers when apprehensive of danger from their enemies. So you're talking about huge cities of almost, they can house 60,000 people. But hey, of course, they're going to say they don't know who built these cities. They don't know who was here. But it's all starting to make sense that it was what did Moses, when he sent the people out, what did they come back and say? You're talking about were these people living in tents? No, they were living in these huge structures. They weren't living in tents. They were living in these fortified structures. There wasn't a few people. There were a lot of people. There were giants that were present. When they went in, they were told to kill men, women, and children. You find all of that right here. But you don't find it over there in the so-called Middle East. So if you believe that the land is over there and you can't find any proof of these things happening, you're then free to say, oh, well, these things never happened. The book of Joshua never happened. All the while they're ignoring all the proof of these things happening right here. Everything fits like a glove over here. And if someone's going to say, well, no, then prove all this, show all this stuff over there. It's really easy to say no when you don't do the homework. Talking about the Hebrews being empowered. Now, it makes a lot of sense to me. The Most High is showing you, like Revelation 12. Let's get that really quick. About the earth helping the woman. That all goes hand in hand with what's going on. Let's let me go here really quick. I'm getting some messages from some of my boys about what's going on over here in Iran and the attacks and everything else. Let's see here. Revelation 12. Now towards the end. Let's go to the serpent causing a flood. Let's go to 15. Revelation 12 and 15. And the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood after the woman, that he may cause her to be carried away of the flood. That flood could represent these lies. The serpent lying to us, making us think that we were from over there in the so-called Middle East, when we have already been home this whole time. 16. And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood, which the dragon cast out of his mouth. The dragon had cast this flood, these lies, over the entire world. And now the earth is opening up and showing the truth, showing where these things happened, showing us where our homeland is at this point. And right now, 17, and the dragon was wroth with the woman and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of the Most High and have the testimony of Mashiach, Yahweh Shai. This is what you're seeing right now. The earth is opening itself up These books have been given back to us. This information is now being restored back to its rightful owners. What you're seeing right now is prophecy being fulfilled. We're going to read a little bit to finish up from Nephi chapter 21, where it says, Israel will be gathered when the Book of Mormon comes forth. The Gentiles will be established as a free people in America. They will be saved if they believe and obey. Otherwise, they will be cut off and destroyed. Israel will build the new Jerusalem, and the lost tribes will return. Israel will be gathered when the Book of Mormon comes forth. Israel will be gathered when the Book of Mormon comes forth. That was a few months ago. The Book of Mormon has opened up all these other avenues to all this other information that has been hidden until now. The Book of Mormon was the key for us to be able to realize that these events were happening over here and not over there in the so-called Middle East. The Book of Mormon opened up the book of the geography of the Book of Mormon, has opened up many other books and given us more knowledge and understanding. It's no coincidence that we've been hearing about possible war with Iran, possible war with all these other countries, and nothing really ever gets kicked off. The Book of Mormon comes forth. We start to pray together. And now look at the events of today. Look at how things have escalated so quickly. This is just more proof of what the Most High had already told us. I'm going to skip up to 7. We're at 3rd Nephi, chapter 21, verse 7. And when these things come to pass, and thy seed shall begin to know these things, it shall be a sign unto them, that they may know that the work of the Father hath already commenced unto the fulfilling of the covenant which he hath made unto the people who are of the house of Israel. Okay, that's 7. Now I'm going to go back up here to 6. For thus it behooveth the Father that it should come forth from the Gentiles, that he may show forth his power unto the Gentiles. For this cause that the Gentiles, if they will not harden their hearts, and they may repent and come unto me and be baptized in the name of the and know of the true points of my doctrine, and they may be numbered among the people of the house of Israel. The true points of this doctrine is that the Most High has a chosen people, and that he's using them to preserve our records until it was time for us to awaken. But once it was time for us to awaken, they're then to fall back and follow the true chosen people. 8. And when that day shall come, it shall come to pass that kings shall shut their mouths, for that which had not been told them shall they see, and that which they had not heard shall they consider. So when they start to see this truth, these kings, these Gentiles, these other nations will shut their mouths. And that all things that they thought that they knew, they're going to realize they were in error. Again with 8. And when that day shall come, it shall come to pass that kings shall shut their mouths, for that which they had not been told them shall they see, and that which they had not heard shall they consider. For in that day, for my sake, shall the Father work a work, which shall be a great and a marvelous work among them. And there shall be among them those who will not believe it, although a man shall declare it unto them. And we are declaring the fact that this is our book. We are declaring that this is part of prophecy. We are declaring that these are the two sticks being brought together. And even at this point, many people are still saying, I don't believe it. That's the white man's book. But your Bible isn't, though, I guess, right? But you're going to say that this Book of Mormon is the white man's book. 10. But behold, the life of my servant shall be in my hand. Therefore shall they not hurt him, although he shall be marred because of them. Yet I will heal him, for I will show unto them that my wisdom is greater than the cunning of the devil. And his wisdom is definitely greater than the cunning of the devil. The cunning of the devil was, that's your land over there. Your lands are over there. Oh, we can't prove anything happened over here? Yeah, that must mean that your Bible is wrong. That was the cunning of the devil. But his wisdom is greater. He said he's going to preserve our records by the hands of these other Gentiles. And then at the end, right before the end happens, he is going to give these records back to us so that we may find our way back to the Father. That's how he's restoring the covenant and restoring our land. 11. Therefore it shall come to pass that whosoever will not believe in my words, who am Hamashiach Yahweh, which the Father shall cause him to bring forth unto the Gentiles, and shall give unto him power, that he shall bring them forth unto the Gentiles. It shall be done even as Moses said. They shall be cut off from among the people who are of the covenant. Just like Jacob 5, as we begin to grow, the other nations will begin to weaken. 12. And my people, who are the remnant of Jacob, shall be among the Gentiles, yea, in the midst of them, as a lion amongst the beasts of the forest, as a young lion among the flocks of sheep, who if he go through both treadeth down and teareth in pieces, and none can deliver. The Most High is fulfilling everything he said he was going to. Now you understand why it was so important for them to make us believe that our land was over there in the so-called Middle East, so that they wouldn't have to, they can make up their own narrative. Just like the Most High said in Psalms 50, what have you guys done? Why do you guys declare my statutes? You guys don't want to listen to me. You guys want to make up your own God. You want to make up your own power that doesn't exist. Well, the Most High is showing you now that he does exist, and that he does love his people, and that the covenant belongs to us, and the Most High is restoring it right now. If the Most High is calling any of you at this point, I would suggest you come and you chase after the Father, because time is very short. All praise is to the Most High, Yahweh. Acknowledgement to the earthly mother, who is wisdom, who is Holy Spirit. Acknowledgement to Yahweh Shai. Stay safe, brethren. Shalom.